Oh, hi. Welcome to Todd talk number 7. Today we're going to talk about planning for your, it doesn't say here, we should say planning for your remodel. Todd talk number 7. So I'm just going to jump right into it. When you're planning for remodels, there's some things you may or may not need, depending on the scope of your project. What you'll definitely need is to do any remodels drawings of your house. And we'll talk about that more later. And a plot map of your property, and that should be, if you're probably planning a remodel with your own property, this should be part of your title report. If it's not, you can get this from the city or county in which you reside. You may need a survey. You would only really need a survey if you are planning to add outward. If you're just going up, you probably would not need a survey. And then if the project is on the hill or in certain conditions, you may need what's called a soil report or a geotechnical report. These are rarely needed. These are the 3 you typically will need. The people you may need, depending on, again, the scope, is you're most likely going to need a builder or a contractor. You want a contractor who's a builder or a contractor who's got the right amount of insurance. The distinction here is this could be a carpenter who's not licensed as a building contractor, but it has insurance and is perfectly capable of doing the work for you. You may or may not need designers or architects, depending on what your scope of work is. Same with an energy consultant, and then potentially you need a structural engineer if you're dealing with moving walls, adding more space upward or outward. Things to consider is you're going to want to consider, obviously, what your timeline is, and this is where a designer and a contractor can help you. Your budget, and then a big one is where you're going to live during construction. And again, depending on how big a scope of your project, even a kitchen remodel is very disruptive. So kitchen remodels are shorter in duration, but they're also disruptive when you have a kitchen. So something really to consider. Again, your designer and your contractor can help you with trying to understand these elements. So when you're planning a construction project, you're going to first do what we call a pre-design phase. And the pre-design phase is before you even hire the designer or pay a designer to design. You're going to want to gather information, your documents, get measured drawings completed. So if you don't have, and most people do not have measured drawings of their existing house. So you can, as a part of, there's services you can call, and they will come and measure your drawings. You can also call our office. We now have a very high-tech scanner that we put in your house, and it scans every element of your house. That's very cool. It scans and measures everything, including your furniture, which is kind of nice for relatability. If we're planning, we know this is your couch, and here's what it looks like in this space. So you can call us, and we can get measured drawings done for you as a separate item before you hire us or hire anybody else. So that's most design firms will do that. So you can either have us do that, or you can also call a firm that specializes in what is called as-built drawings. Then you want to create an inventory of your needs, your wish list, or your program statement. You just sit down with yourself and your partner and just write it all out. What's working about your house? What's not working about your house? You can ask yourself different questions. It's good to start an image catalog. It's really easy with Pinterest or just cutting out things up, Dwell magazine or any magazine, taking pictures of things you like, other people's houses. This is really helpful for not only for you, but for your designers. Even if it's not literal, you don't capture, you don't have to worry about getting the exact thing you want. You can have a picture and I like this about it and this about it, and communicate that. It's great when an owner, for us as designers, when an owner presents us with an image catalog, an inventory of needs, and gathered documents. That's incredible. That helps everybody, and it helps save you money. So you can, as the owner and the client, for us, you can work on these things without it. You can also go to the city. You don't have to. A county to discuss the project. You can wait and have your designer do that. But that is something you could take the initiative of doing. You can describe what you want to do. They'll look up all the documents and documents they have in what's called a planning file on your property. So you go to them and say, I'd like, the plan file on my property, and you can see the other permits that have been given to the property before you purchased it, and look at sort of the history of the building. Then you're going to want to consult professional designers, or there's some exception to that if it's a very small project, and we can talk about that again later. You may, number 6, if it's a kitchen remodel or a bathroom remodel, you may not need to or want to consult professional designers, and may just directly hire a builder who does this. And there's lots of builders, especially in the Bay Area, who are wonderful at just the full service, helping you design a kitchen, design a bathroom. When you get into moving walls and structural things, they're usually a little more uncomfortable, and different permits are needed, and especially in this market, they don't have the time to help you with design, so they're going to ask you to go get an architect and come back when you have drawings. Number 7, establish your scope, budget, timeline. This is very hard to do if you don't know. I mean, you can establish your scope, which is your building program, which is your wish list, right? This is what I want. But budget and timeline are going to be hard for you to do, and but you can start thinking about it. You can ask friends and consult with the architect early, or the people you know. Start thinking about budget and timeline. I'll give you a little bit of sense of timeline over here. So once you've sort of done all this, you put your team together. You consulted your professional. You've come to an agreement with a professional. You feel comfortable with that person. Then you can start the design process. The design steps are conceptual design, design development, construction drawings, permit processing, and then construction itself. And then I give you a little bit of timeline here. So the initial design steps are what we call conceptual design. I guess I didn't bring my pencil drawing up. Let me show you really quick what can you bring up the drawings and the sketches for Caroline Street? Yeah. So this is what a set of as-built drawings looks like. This is an existing duplex, and you'll end up with something like that. This, of course, is what we use as an underlay, and we put our trace paper on top of that, and we sketch over that, because you have an existing building you're trying to remodel. And we'll show you that later. So you've hired your architect. You're going to do conceptual design. You have this. Remember, this is before we've entered design phase. We have our as-built drawings. So your architect's going to basically do this. Do overlay sketches. You can bring that over. An overlay sketch right onto, no, it's base drawing. Base drawing. The as-built drawing. Yes. Those are not as-built drawings. So, coming. So, but this is what the pencil sketches look like, that are overlaid right on top of a computer-drawn as-built drawing. This we put in the computer because it's already there. That we could just draw it right onto CAD. Then we're going to overlay. We're going to use the trace paper and draw on top of it. And then we're going to basically do conceptual drawing. We're going to brainstorm. So typically, what I will do as your architect is we'll have the as-built drawing. I will have already met you when we've talked about signing the contract, and I'll already have a good idea of what you need. The as-built drawings will be done. I'll do some sketching over the top of the as-built drawings. So here's our as-built drawing for another project, for this project. And this is the second floor. Mm-hmm. Alex? Yes. So this goes on top of this, something like that. Anyway, I can't quite figure out how to, something like that. So you can see this, I can, when I'm drawing on top of this as your architect, I can show you what the as-built is, and then I can show you what we're thinking of, how you're modifying it. In this house, you can see it has up to its sort of third level has this non-conforming little tiny stair, because the third level on this house was a former attic. So they never changed their attic. So one of the things I'm doing is showing them how to build a conforming staircase here. They also have these massive bedrooms and not a bathroom. So you can see here, we added a bathroom between these two bedrooms, had a corridor, made these two bedrooms a really nice size. Let me give you, this is a mansion, so usually we don't have too big a bedroom. So, but you can see from that process, we're doing a simple rough planning. It's really what we call space planning. Okay, we're showing you the different options. We are a firm, because I was a builder before I went to architecture school, we really know construction costs. If you're working with an architecture firm or an architect that doesn't really know construction costs very well, and most don't, honestly, ask them to bring a builder into the process, or you bring a builder into the process immediately, very early on. One of the mistakes architects make constantly is not having a builder be part of the design process. So the architect does all the design, builder comes in late, builder says, I can do it for X, and it's 2X, or it's 50% more than you told the architect you had. So you want to consult early with builders, in our case, since I used to be a builder and I'm 60 years old now with 40 years of experience in the profession, and builders also extremely busy, we'll be able to help you with this, right? And then we will bring a builder in a little bit later in the process. So, depending on the scope of work, if you are expanding your building envelope, you're going to need you're going to need drawings to submit to the planning department. So there are 2 permits you typically have to get for any construction project: a planning approval and then a building department approval. You skip the planning department approval if you're not expanding your building envelope. You're not making your house any larger. If you're expanding out typically more than 200 square feet, you're going to be asked to submit drawings to the planning department for approval. If it's less than 200 square feet, typically in most cities, that number varies, but typically in most cities, if it's less than 200 square feet, they'll let you do it without, because the impact is so minor. So if you're not expanding your envelope, you're going to go from conceptual design right into this phase, which is called design development. So once your conceptual design is done, your planning department has said, you know what you're trying to do is fine with us. You're adding another bedroom, neighbors haven't complained, here's your permit, your planning permit to proceed. You get that. We then hire the structural engineer, if needed, right? So if you're adding to your envelope, you're obviously going to need the help of the structural engineer. So in the design development phase, you're now taking your conceptual design and saying, well, what kind of materials are we using? What's our exterior siding? What kind of doors and windows do we want to use? What about our kitchen? Or what kind of cabinetry are we going to use? You're starting to actually build the project. Think of it as building it in 2D, building it in drawing. You're actually making the decisions of what you're going to put in the building. Once that is done, this is where you really need, and the builder can give you really what is called a construction cost estimate. In this market, where builders are all busy, it's very hard to get that here. They just won't give it to you. They're going to say, they're going to wait, where's your structural engineering drawings? They're too busy. But once you have structural engineering drawings, the decisions have been made. It's pretty easy for them to give you a construction cost estimate. What you must have, you absolutely must have this before you enter into the final design phase, which is construction documents. You don't want to spend more money in planning a project if it's over budget. So we want to make sure your budget, I mean, our firm's really good at this. We rarely go over budget. But the market is pretty rough right now. Builders are busy and materials are expensive. So we want to get a really strong reality check at the design development phase before we go to construction drawings. Then we go to construction drawings. We're basically doing all the rest of the stuff that's required, including putting together required green building checklists. We're doing our final dimensioning, our notations, if there's any specifications that go along with it, making final decisions. These are the documents that are submitted to the city or county for building permits. So we already had our planning permits if we needed it. Now we're ready for our building permits. Then we're going to enter into a phase for permit processing. So you don't just take your drawings to the building department and they stamp them. They take them in and they look them over, and it takes a while. This is going to take at least 30 days. Okay, unless it's a kitchen or a bathroom remodel, and that often can be done just over the counter. So if it's a small scope, like a kitchen or bathroom remodel, but even a deck over 3 feet is going to take a while because of the issues of safety. Oh, it's up over 3 feet, and how does it connect to the building? Kitchen and bathroom remodel, there's no safety issues, so you can think of it that way. If there's anything that could fail, then they get nervous and they really want to look at it. So during the permit processing, you're also securing your contractor pricing. And you're getting your contract, you're signing your contract with your contractor, and your professional designer can help you at that phase. And then when you've got your permit, you have your builder, and it's on budget, you enter your construction phase. Does that make sense? So conceptual design, about 2 months. If you have an envelope change and you're needing to get a planning permit, that's going to add time. And that adds another 2 to 6 months to the process. If you're comfortable with that, and you know, your architect, builder can help you understand your risks. But often this is just a sort of a rote process, and it's not a big deal. It's just no neighbors are complaining. That's the big thing. If you have no neighbors and you've gone to your neighbors and told them what you're trying to do, if you're changing your envelope and you think it's disruptive in any way to the neighbors, including noise, it's always a good idea. If your neighbors are supporting your project, you can continue with this phase while this phase is happening. Right? So these can be concurrent. But if you want to be conservative, you go 2 months here, 2 to 6 months here, 2 months design development, 2 months construction documents, 2 months in the permit process. So now you're 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to 14 months to get a building permit. Now, if you don't need this, you're down to, what, 8? Is that right? 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 months. Now, if you're just doing a kitchen, you've knocked out this. I mean, you can do kitchen remodel. You can get a permit. You can go through a whole planning process and get a permit for a kitchen remodel and something in as little as 4 months. And faster if you need to. And then your construction, you should budget 8 to 12 months, really 8 to 14, probably 9 to 14. The busier everybody is, the harder it is. One thing to think about when you're planning this is, again, for budgetary reasons, you want to consult as early as you can with your builders, but also to try to secure a builder. You want to meet with the builders. So what you don't want to do is wait until you get your building permit or you're close to your permit and then go out and talk to builders. Your architect should know this, but because right now, if you're planning in this current market in the Bay Area, everybody's busy, and the builders are all busy. So you want to, if you were working with us, we could help you. We have some recommendations. Try to bring the builder into the conversation as early as possible and talk about scheduling. Get them on their. You want to get your project on their dance card. So that's important. If you can, and this process goes well and you're building a relationship with them, and you feel comfortable with them, and the pricing is in, and I'd recommend it, or you have good recommendation, you feel strong about the builder, they like you, get them on your dance card, get your project on their dance card, so you have them and they're ready to go. When you're ready. Does that make sense? Any questions?
We have a question that would you create a cost-benefit analysis for a remodel versus new construction if it was something like a kitchen? Would you help the owner understand what would be more beneficial to them?
A remodel?
Right, if they just wanted to come to you with their floor plans and wanted your advice on what's better for them, would you be able to guide them before they actually went through this process?
Consulting.
Correct.
Yes, we consult.
Usually the permit process and dealing with the city is like a roadblock. So what do you do as a firm to make sure that that process is as efficient as it can be?
Well, in new construction and larger projects, that's usually a roadblock. In the smaller, usually in residential remodeling, it's not an issue. Especially if you're trying to add a second story, or you're trying to add a building right next to another house. That could be an issue, but I haven't had any real roadblock kinds of issues with the city around. I mean, there's due diligence, and they ask for a lot of information and a lot of documentation. So that's not really a roadblock. That's just processing. Sophia, have any questions?
Not at this moment.
Okay, sure.
How do you determine whether an architecture firm is a good fit?
Oh, that's a great question. That's like really important question. So I would say this in just terms of the standard kind of, if you're doing a deck or a bathroom remodel or a kitchen remodel or small scope, you're removing a fireplace, you're putting in a skylight, new floors, you should go directly to a contractor, and they can help you with all of this. Especially in the down economy. We don't have a down economy. If you're doing things like you want to expand your kitchen, if you're doing any kind of addition, up or down, or putting in a new staircase or anything like that. If it involves structural, you want to involve. You probably should involve an architect. You're going to need a structural engineer, but you should probably involve an architect. Our particular firm, we don't do the smaller work, but we can advise. But you're always welcome to call us and ask. You can talk to me. My cell number is 510-334-3626. And you can, I'll spend a couple minutes with you. You can describe what you're trying to do, and I can help you.
Speaking of construction costs, obviously costs are up right now, but is there like a better time of the year as far as like materials?
No. Best time of year is now. Every time literally right now in this economy, if you wait 6 months, you just added 2% to construction costs. So because costs are continuing to escalate. The best thing I can do, and what I do to help you, is the kind of contractors to get. So there's a range of contractors, and some of my staff are here in the room, and we know this. There's the smaller contractor who actually builds your job, that does your paperwork and manages the job, and has a pickup truck and a tool belt and is out there building your job. For most remodels, that's the person or persons you want. They are going to be they don't have overhead. They're working out of their home. Their office it's a home office, and they have a pickup truck and they have low overhead. But they are also often hardest to reach, and they're scrambling, and they have several jobs. So maybe they're a little bit deficient on finishing the job completely and project management and availability. The other end of the spectrum is McCutcheon Construction, who's right down the street here, and they are a very high level, high service firm. So there's never going to be an issue with timeline. If you come to them, they will deliver, and they will deliver on the same timeline every single time, and it'll be immediate. But you will pay top dollar for that. They will handle every issue. They're highly insured. They have a system that delivers a great result every single time. So, but they're going to be 30 to 50% more expensive than the person. So you're going to, it depends on, they're also going to be faster. So you have to think, okay, well, if McCutcheon says we're going to be done in 6 months, they're going to be done in 6 months. If your guy in the pickup truck said I'll be done in 6 months, it could be 6, it could be 10 months. You can ask them for references, but there's just it's not a firm that's delivered time and time again. It has a system of delivery. It's a person. So you can, it's much like what we're dealing with in a marketplace with other kinds of things.
What sets Todd architecture apart when it comes to residential remodels?
Well, I thank you for that question. My experience is I grew up, I was fascinated with construction by the time I was in 6th grade. So I was, and I apprenticed with an architect and a builder all through college, even when I wasn't studying architecture. So for the 8 to 10 years that I was in college, including a full year off, I apprenticed with a master carpenter. So I myself, really familiar with building. I know the kinds of things to do and the kinds of things not to do. So what sets us apart is my ability to help you with what we call cost planning. So again, that's the integration. If you think we're really kind of a design build firm, even though we're not going to do the construction, we are going to team up with a contractor, and then with my knowledge of the building trades, and as the staff know, we go together down to True and White and find out what the cost of materials are, and we're very intimate with, and we're very committed to providing, high value, the highest value at the cost. We're also a leading green, sustainable firm, so we're going to bring our passion and our love and our commitment to sustainability with every project. And what's unique about us is that we can bring that without adding cost. And the reason we can do that is because we have our own internal commitment. So we're constantly looking around the universe for high systems and methods and ways of building that are both green and affordable. And we find them. So if you're not committed to doing that, you're just not going to turn the rocks over and find stuff. So we are committed to doing so. We turn the rocks over. We find lots of stuff that increases the performance of your building and lowers your costs. And then we have a great staff, very fast, very efficient, get things done on time. We meet our design budgets, and we have happy clients.
How about one more question? How
Yeah.
about design aesthetics? So if a prospective client is thinking about a project and you mentioned Pinterest and using those types of tools to pull together samples, do you design to any aesthetic that a client might want, or do you?
What aesthetic would you like?
Or of a specific point of view?
We have no point of view whatsoever. Our point of view has more to do with how we get things done and how we can bring the highest value at the lowest cost. So from an aesthetic, from a style point of view, we just work with whatever. I mean, it's very hard, if you look at our website, it's very hard for you to pick any style, because every single project is almost entirely different. You can see ways that we put together things, so there'll be like a sort of maybe an aesthetic that comes out of that. If you might, there was a style called Carpenter Gothic or Carpenter, which is just really master carpentry, and you can see that in the way we attach things, the way our decks are done. If you look at Calvary Church, it's a great example of that kind of way of putting things together. Like I like to use 2 pieces of wood and 1 piece of wood. I call that coupling. You'll see that a lot in our projects. But so if there was an aesthetic that I like most, it's in an Asian, in a Japanese aesthetic. It's called the simplicity and the elegance. Simple elegance is what we try to achieve. All right, thanks so much for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you.